Welcome to the Mariah Jean Fit YouTube channel. I'm Coach Mariah. Make sure you like our videos, subscribe to our channel, and share our videos as much as possible so we can reach a broader audience. We appreciate your support and enjoy the video. Hello and welcome to another vlog on YouTube and podcast on Spotify by the Fit Minds podcast. Coach Mariah here. So today we're going to be diving into the topic of comparing yourself to others, or whether or not it's individuals, groups of people, but basically the comparison of oneself to anything else other than oneself. An all too common behavioral habit seemingly ingrained in those of us who may be seeking to better ourselves, or perhaps might be slightly more self-critical or self-conscious than necessary. Comparing yourself to others is aptly coined social comparison. So what does social comparison look like? We will obviously dive into what it looks like, why we do it, signs you are comparing yourself to others, why we shouldn't compare ourselves to others, and how to stop comparing yourself. So we'll start off with what it looks like. The comparison of yourself to others, be it a particular person, stereotype, minorities, or the majority of the population. So whether it's someone who looks similar to you in the way of your environmental factors, maybe your age, maybe the sex, maybe you're thinking for a fair comparison, or what we perceive to be the norm. So who we believe is a very normal person, or perhaps that we perceive that the way they live their lives or who they are or the way they look might be what we consider to be normal. So there are actually a couple of different ways we can compare ourselves to others. One way is that we try to make ourselves like the other person, so that we are trying to assimilate to that person to make ourselves feel normal. Another way, and probably the most common, is what's called upward comparison, and it is basically comparing to what we may perceive to be someone who is more fortunate, more wealthy, beautiful, or aesthetically pleasing, lucky, gifted or talented, more organized, driven, or even more motivated than us. So this is all perception, because yes, somebody might be better off financially than us, but whether or not this is a positive or negative influence in our life and what it has to do with us is different. So then we have downward comparison, involving a comparison to an individual or group of people who seem to be perhaps less fortunate, financially unstable, what is not maybe aesthetically pleasing to our eye, leading a different lifestyle, having a poor attitude towards something, disorganized, or perhaps appear to be lazy or complacent. So this is often where you'll see people putting others down, or even judging other people's lifestyles or the way that they look. And this is often, as I'll dive into, maybe a means of making ourselves feel better about ourselves. So we can compare to others across a number of factors, such as personality traits, life or environmental circumstances, personal choices, sheer chance or timing, or even genetics. Now, it doesn't mean that we should be doing this, but this is just what we see in comparison to others, is that there are literally an endless list of factors that we can use in the comparison game. So basically, there is lots of room for us to be hyper vigilant in being critical of ourselves, or even so in the other direction, putting other people down or putting them below us, putting ourselves above other people in that comparison game. So you can see how we start to establish this kind of social hierarchy in a way when we compare our lives to the lives of others. So why do we do it? Most commonly, we compare ourselves to others to make, obviously, as I mentioned, to make ourselves feel better, or even worse about ourselves. Interestingly enough, when we think about comparison, comparing yourself to others who you think might be more fortunate, more lucky, or more beautiful, or more aesthetically pleasing, you may have even compared yourself to me at some stage, and I get this quite a bit. And in those cases, it's often weirdly to make ourselves feel worse about ourselves. So it's like we think that we're not responsible for it. We think it must be the other person making us feel awful, or it must be that because they are, to us more beautiful, or to us they might be fitter or faster or financially better off or more intelligent, or whatever in comparison to us. And weirdly enough, it's a subconscious behavior to make yourself feel like shit. It's not actually somebody else's responsibility if you feel bad about yourself when somebody else is succeeding, or if somebody is doing something that you perceive to be superior to what you're doing. So, but obviously it can also make you feel better about yourself. So if you put other people down, if you've seen this before, where people will often create the social hierarchy in order, in that they will put people down if they might not be earning as much as them, or maybe not as intellectual as them. And so this is often where you can see it in the reverse to make yourself feel better. So it can come from a position of praise or self-entitlement, even self-sabotage or self-deprecation. So you can see that people will bring themselves up, make themselves feel entitled when they put others down. And then obviously on the other hand, where we have the comparison of others who we perceive to be better than us, where we self-sabotage and we put ourselves down. So it can be perceived to be a means of attaining, as I mentioned, a social status or hierarchy in our own minds, okay? So this actually doesn't exist in society. Perhaps maybe if we started to document social hierarchy and status and what's perceived to be status, but status is really just an assumption and a perception, isn't actually a reality. A person isn't necessarily a better person because they are richer. They're not necessarily better because they are more, aesthetically pleasing from a very generic perspective in the Western world. There's a lot of depth that we could go into as to what is perceived to be superior or not so much, and it all is just perception. So when we talk about social status and hierarchy, it's often a natural behavior that we engage in order to find our position in the world and to also establish our own self-esteem. However, unfortunately, that's not how you establish self-esteem, and this is often where people can get very lost. So it obviously can aid in either justifying our current actions in life. So if we find that we like to be the same as other people and we like to say, well, I've got that too, but I'm achieving that too, and oh yeah, I do that too. That can often, that comparison to other people and what they're achieving can make us feel like we've justified our decisions and our actions, or perhaps even challenge them. So the comparison, that upward comparison, can, yes, in some way encourage other people to maybe want for more or yearn for more that other people might have. But in that as well, you can get lost in that upward comparison because you might never be satisfied. So this is all done without considering all factors in play, okay? So it's interesting how much we assume people's lives are the way that they are, and that we don't actually always have the full picture. So we also don't think much about what we actually want in our lives and what we are capable of, what our own individual journey experiences, genetics or environmental factors and choices are in play. So often when we are doing this comparison game, when you're looking at me down the screen at the moment thinking, some nice shoulder caps she's got there, and oh, I wish I had no wrinkles, or whatever you can think about an aesthetic appearance from just face value. And then even you could think about my life, or you could think about my career. You could think, oh, I wish I was a successful businesswoman. And we haven't even begun to think about what my childhood was like, or what I'd been like, been through previously, or whether this ring light is making my appearance probably a little bit more appealing than it actually is. And the reality and the factors that are in play in contributing to the whole big picture, and not just that, why even comparing to my life is even, it's valid, it's not, So much of the assumptive process of comparison is literally that, it's just assumptions and our own bias established in our own minds. So, signs that you are comparing yourself to others. It's something to really watch out for. I was a big comparison, game player. I think I was certainly a person who pretty much my entire life revolved around comparing myself to others, and certainly feeling this competitive nature, which was almost fueled by jealousy and envy, and that unfortunately that led to nothing but disappointment and dissatisfaction with my own accomplishments. So signs you're comparing yourself to others: you're a notorious perfectionist. Okay. Some people think perfectionism is a fantastic trait. I beg to differ. You find yourself often looking at other people's lives, circumstances, physical attributes, physical possessions, careers, and wanting exactly what they have. Now, when I've just mentioned that, I know that there are going to be plenty of you that can sit with that thought. You don't even have to tell me this and say, yes, I do that. I do that. I do that. I've even done it. I've probably done this a couple of times in the last couple of weeks and months where I've looked at, specifically my latest thing has been other people's homes. It's like I really want a nice home. And so I'm looking at these nice homes going, oh, I wouldn't mind a house like that. But it's not, I know that sometimes it's coming from a perspective of, I want the nice home because it makes that person look successful. And it's interesting to practice that transparency with yourself requires a whole lot of self-reflection, and it requires you to be honest with yourself, because I wasn't able to spot that until I started to recognize, hold on, it's not actually important what your house looks like. Are you happy with it? Are you content? Does it feel like home? So that's obviously a sign that you're comparing yourself to others. You might think, well, hold on, I'm aspiring. So I'm just aspiring to have things that other people have. That's nothing wrong with that, right? I mean, yes and no. If it's becoming something that consumes your mind, and certainly where you're doing it quite often, you have to probably think about this. Are you aspiring for your own goals? Or are you aspiring for the goals and accomplishments of other people without thinking about what your capacity is currently, without thinking about your current circumstances, without thinking about how much hard work it's going to take, and without actually thinking about the bigger picture before you think about the I want? You're competitive, but in a sense that you can only compete with others. Okay, this is a big red flag in the way of comparison game. You thrive when you have someone else to compete with, always, in almost everything that you do in life. So if you find you're a person who says, I have to have competition, otherwise I don't feel driven. Without competition from others, you find it difficult to remain on task or motivated. You find yourself never really feeling very satisfied with where you are in your life or where you are going. Okay, now most people can say, look, I'm happy with where I am. I'm really happy. I'm content. But you can't say in the same breath, I'm happy with where I am, but I want what she's got. Because that then shows that you're not happy with where you are because you want what another person has. It's very different than saying, look, I want more for myself, but I'm happy with where I am, sure. But if it is a straight comparison to other people, then that's where you've got to kind of flag that down and be mindful of it. So you find it difficult to reflect on what you have achieved and appreciate yourself for your own accomplishments, no matter how big or small, no matter where you are in your journey. You're finding it really difficult to just sit with that, and you tend to keep floating outwards of there and just kind of, oh, but ba 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 ba, but ba 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 ba. And it's almost like in the same breath of congratulating yourself, you're also acknowledging somebody else instead. You're not giving yourself full credit. You're not even allowing yourself to have a moment. Your moment is then still compared to somebody else's. You feel as though you are lagging behind all the time in comparison to others of a similar age, same sex, and similar environmental circumstances. And funnily enough, we do this by default. It's a weird thing that we do, but again, it is something that helps us establish our position in society. It's not a reality, but something that people do mostly because of conditioning, to be completely honest. We've seen it happen in our lives. We've seen other people compare themselves and therefore we do the same, but it's actually entirely unnecessary. Or simply finding that you are regularly comparing or envious, and you can feel the envy of almost anyone else who has something that you do not have, or is somewhere that you are not, right now, or seems to be having a better time with something than you are. I mean, the age old, I don't know how she finds it so easy. I don't know how she does it. Wow, she's got 6 kids and she seems so happy. You know, I'm a mess. I don't know how she does it. And you have that almost that boiling jealousy inside yourself that's like, well, she's probably got help. Well, this is why she's doing a good job. And there's all these dismissive types of comments around this person's success and happiness, which again is all the comparison game. So you can see how often we actually fall into this on a daily basis, mind you. So you find that you're regularly, obviously, getting stuck in these cycles, and then you fantasize with the idea of having bigger and better goals, but you get frustrated when you don't achieve them in the same timeline as somebody else has, or that you are not where they are currently with the same process that you're engaging in. So you're trying to compare like for like. You're saying like, that person's an apple and I'm an apple, and why is that apple bigger than mine? And I've put so much effort into growing that apple. Why is my apple not as big as that apple? And the truth of the matter is because it isn't. It's not the same apple. It's a fucking different apple. You've had completely different environments. You may have been rained on more than the other apple, or vice versa. You may have had a bug crawl into your apple, but you can never, ever, ever, ever replicate somebody else's circumstances, and therefore the comparison between what you might believe are two very similar and like-for-like things are just not. So, you spend a considerable amount of time, and put your hand up if you're guilty, even if you're by yourself, looking at other people's lives to set your own goals and expectations of yourself. It's almost like you're using their bar, the bar they've set for themselves is apparently your bar as well. It's almost like you feel like you've got to be in their lane. Imagine doing a 100-meter sprint, and instead of running in your own lane, you're running in theirs. It doesn't make any sense. You don't both fit into that lane, you can't race somebody if you're trying to smother them in the same race and trying to be, identical in every step with them. It doesn't work like that. So if you're spending all this time looking at other people's lives and then you're trying to mold your life around other people's lives, you actually have zero identity. It's kind of like you are the sum of other people. And unfortunately, that can also lead to extreme disappointment because you are literally, you're not actually, I suppose, really going after anything from your own perspective. You're going after something, trying to walk in the shoes of somebody else, which will never be able to happen. It's not actually physically possible to live somebody else's life. So you say things like, I wish I had what she has. I wish I looked like that. I wish I could do that. These all sound very familiar. I want her or his abs, arms, car, house, relationship dynamic. Oh, it'd be nice if this happened. Not all of us can have blah, 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 blah. That's all comparison, right? And it's not fair to the other person, and nor is it fair to you. So it's a very uncomfortable thing for people to do. And I think being on the receiving end of this type of behavior I've had from other people towards me, probably my whole life, and I've even projected outwards to other people as well, where I've compared myself to other women mostly. It's kind of that competitive nature. And less and less and less so as the years have gone on, because I've realised that it actually creates an incredibly deep sadness, disappointment and frustration that you can't seem to shake. So in that, you use it as a tool to harm your inner self instead of building yourself up, okay? So social media can actually be the worst place for somebody like you. If you're finding this as you, social media is basically like the drug that will be your demise, in that you are feeding yourself something that you don't need and actually is causing you harm, and you're actually doing it on purpose. So you haven't actually stopped to think about what it is that you really love and what you want for your future. You haven't even thought about it. It's just always been built off what you've seen other people doing. Removing the concept of someone else's life as an influence on your decisions or reason for pursuing your dreams is really the key to this, right? It's removing every sort of bias that you could from seeing what so-and-so is making every, paycheck, or seeing what so-and-so is wearing. This is why I don't follow fashion. One of the major reasons I don't follow fashion is because it can be a never-ending spiral, a hole that you can get stuck in, where you see someone's bought a new thing and then you want the new thing. Or they've, released something and you want it before someone else gets it. I think I bought this dress actually, no, I didn't. I was given it by a boutique 4 years ago, I think. And it's like, people will probably think this is new, and it's not. It's like this cute little denim dress that I couldn't even tell you what brand it is, but I liked it and I put it on today. So, but I didn't come from a place of wanting what somebody else had and being in fashion and being up to date, because it was never fueled by that. It was never fueled by a want or a need of what somebody else has. So not needing to get in first as well is a big part of that. You find yourself constantly chopping and changing from one pursuit to another. So the shiny object syndrome I've actually recognised and spoken about in previous vlogs, which is usually after seeing something that somebody else has achieved. So it's kind of like you were on your own path and then all of a sudden you decided, oh, saw something more exciting, I'd like to chase that instead. And as a result, you do everything poorly and nothing very well at all. So this is part of this whole unfinished project stuff where you get so intrigued and interested by something that someone else is doing that might be the polar opposite of what you're doing, and you think, you know what, I want to change directions now, just because you saw a girl doing it that you would, you might admire or be a little bit jealous of. And it's okay to change direction in life. I actually think change is fantastic, but certainly you've got to understand, where does that thought come from? Does it come from a thought because Jane's doing it, you want to do it? Or does it come from, I actually genuinely think that this is the real thing that I'd like to be doing. This is the direction I'd actually like to be going in. So these are all pretty scary things because most of us have done this at some point in time, right? And you find yourself desiring a goal or possession after witnessing someone else attain it. Okay, so, oh, she got a Ferrari. I want a Ferrari now. I want a Ferrari. The happy girl on social media with the big boobs has a Ferrari and I want a damn Ferrari. It's like, hold on, Ferraris don't give you happiness and certainly don't make you feel more confident about yourself. People will argue with me and say that Ferraris do that. Maybe, for like a couple days. I mean, a Ferrari isn't a personality, it's a piece of plastic. It comes down to it, or metal and plastic. That's all it is. And so establishing self-esteem based on possessions can often happen from comparison, in that one of the only reasons why we want, and yeah, there are good quality high brands out there, don't get me wrong, but one of the major reasons why we want high quality brands is because it gives us a sense of social status, and sometimes we see someone else with it and we want it because there's someone else has it. So if you find yourself doing that, wanting something after, especially if it's always after you see someone else with it, that's a problem. You have an open distaste for wealth, success, or on the other hand, degenerate people. Okay, so if you have this assumption that rich people are assholes and they're all, stuff them, like, I hate rich people. It's like, you don't even know who they are. Have you sat down, had a coffee with them? Have you spoken to them about their success and how they got there? Have you thought about maybe not assuming that you know everything about their life, even if it is on the internet? And then on the other end of the scale as well, you have an open distaste, or even you can, just openly generalize that, degenerates, people who aren't, people who are on the dole, the terrible people, and alcoholics, and there's all this like very assumptive discussion, quite almost judgmental in a sense. So you stereotype others both in a way that paints them in a positive or a negative light from your own perspective in comparison to you. And so this is where you see the trolls of the internet, where they might comment something on somebody's video and it might be like, oh, I'd never do that, or, oh, that's disgusting, or, I see it all the time. It's like, actually, people watching is fascinating for me, because not once in my life have I ever trolled somebody's post. The only time I've ever said something negative on someone's post is if I can see they're openly bullying somebody. And it's usually, hey, that's not very nice. It's really unpleasant to speak like that. Why are you such a nasty person? Maybe you need to do some self-reflecting. That poor girl didn't deserve what you just said. So I usually like to stand up for people. That's probably as far as I go on the internet, as far as being argumentative or nasty goes. But, if you are finding that you are a person who wants to, basically put others above you or below you all the time, it's like you've got to try and put yourself on somebody else's level to make yourself feel like you're not better or worse off than them, that you're an equal to them, and you feel like you've got to immediately jump to doing that as soon as somebody has said something about their life or their accomplishments, that, oh yeah, I've done that too, oh yeah, no, me too, yeah. And it's coming from inside you to make yourself feel better. Then you have to really think about, perhaps maybe you might be playing too much of the comparison game. You don't like seeing others in the spotlight. It makes you feel uncomfortable, okay? I can guarantee there will be people who are listening to this vlog at some stage in your life where you have felt uncomfortable or shitty watching someone else succeed. And you've gone, ugh, yeah, I've done that. Yeah, I did. And usually it's people that you just, for some reason you don't like them, or maybe because you've seen them just constantly kill it at life. It's like, girl, you're doing so well. Why are you doing so well? Why? Like, what's your secret? And then it makes you angry and frustrated. Oh, I want to do that well, Again, I've been on the receiving end of a lot of this, because a lot of my success has come in the last 4, 5, 6 years, right? And even before that, maybe so it was building up to it. But prior to that, I was on the side of, I want what she's got, or I want success. Why don't I have that? And much of it is because we lack our own self-reflection, and we actually end up spending a lot of time thinking about other people and not a lot of time actually thinking about ourselves and what we need to do. So if you don't like seeing other people in the spotlight, you don't like seeing people succeed, and it makes you uncomfortable, I'm sorry, but you're a shit person. Like, at the end of the day, you can fix it, all right? But that thought process, in that moment, I'm going to say you're a shitty person for thinking that. Not as a whole. I'm not saying you might be a really wonderful person. You might have had a shit day and just gone, she's lucky. No, that's not true. It doesn't exist. Luck isn't a thing in life. Yes, some people are better off because they maybe inherited money or whatever. But at the end of the day, you can gamble it all in a day. You can be irresponsible with money. So life is a series of decisions, and if people are successful, you can guess that they actually chose to be there and they chose to stay there as well. So if you take away from other people's success, or certainly if you don't like the spotlight being on them, maybe reflect upon that and think about this. Think about the fact that would you like people being like that towards you if you were doing well? And it doesn't actually give you any sort of competitive advantage to be an asshole about somebody else's success, especially not internally. It eats at you. So these are all, again, telltale signs, and you don't even have to tell me, you don't have to tell anybody that you're experiencing this currently, but certainly it does force a bit of self-reflection. And when I was writing these dot points down, I was like, ooh, I've done a couple of these in the last few weeks, and I have to get on top of that. So you look down upon others, or often question why others make the choices they do. You just it's almost like you spend more time giving a shit about what other people are doing instead of yourself. Oh, did you hear so-and-so's podcast? Oh, she thinks she's so smart. Why listen to, if you don't like it, why are you listening? So this type of judgmental behavior, whether it's looking down upon somebody or, even putting them on a pedestal, questioning what they do, questioning why they spend the money they do on certain things, or why they're making those choices in their life when they actually haven't asked you for your advice or your judgment. You may openly discuss the misfortune of others or even find it comical. And you feel a sense of accomplishment by discrediting someone, insulting them, or even dismissing their choices, their lifestyle, appearance, or career as unappealing or beneath you. So this is the other side of things, where we're not putting people above us and comparing ourselves to people thinking they're better than us, but on the other side, where we are actually comparing ourselves to others, that puts us above them, and that social status and that social hierarchy where we push people below us. Now, I've never been a big believer in this, because I've been on the end of a low socioeconomic earner where I have had nothing, next to nothing. In fact, I've been in debt, very, very much, a lot in debt. I've been an alcoholic. I've been a smoker. I've been in a family that I grew up in poverty, right? And I was still incredibly happy as a child. There was a lot of challenges that occurred, obviously, along the way, but as a whole, whether I've had money or haven't had money, or whether I've gone to an influential school or not, or I've literally gone to one of the roughest schools in the country, and then but I've also gone to one of the most privileged and esteemed schools in the country as well on a scholarship. So I've been at both ends of the scale, the social scale, I suppose you could call it. One thing that it taught me was humility in any sense, whether you have money or don't have money, whether you're intellectual or whether you struggle with, maybe it might be being book smart, you might be, more practical, and you might have a little bit more work sense and a bit of you might be more driven in your career. But whatever it looks like, nobody is above or below anybody. In any circumstance, in any given situation or scenario, we don't know that person's background or where they've come from or where they're going or what they've been through, and we can't make any sort of judgments about them, whether they are rich or not rich, or rich in love or rich in money, or whether they are just going through a hard time in their life. So, why we shouldn't compare ourselves? It's ugly. It is motherfucking ugly to compare yourself to other people. It's probably one of the ugliest things I think I've seen people do, is comparison, in any sense, to anybody for any reason, period. And by ugly, I don't mean physically ugly. I mean that it makes you feel like an ugly person, and also it oozes insecurity, right? What I mean by it is it's painful for you to inflict this upon yourself, to inflict that kind of pressure, for you to try and morph to be like somebody else, or even to It's like you've got a column and you've got you over here and they're over here, and you're trying to spot the difference between the two. And I'm not entirely sure why. There is no reason to do that. In fact, I don't think there is a single situation in life where it's plausible to do that to better yourself. Even if you're running a race, even if someone runs faster than you, sure, you could probably compare their gait to yours, but you've got an entirely different anatomy to them. You've got an entirely different genetic structure to them. Comparing yourself to someone else for any reason is like comparing thumbprints and trying to make them identical for two different people. It doesn't make sense. There's no reason to do it. So obviously, this sense of pressure or even entitlement that you give to yourself, because some people can do that as well, where they're entitled by putting others down, but by doing that, it's a false sense of entitlement because it's been created by you. It hasn't been created by anybody else. And so you're the person who's creating this facade in your life of, I am better or worse than other people based on my own assumptions about the people that I'm surrounded by or not surrounded by. And if you were to play that game, imagine comparing yourself to the billions of people that exist in the world and then trying to establish your position on your social status or hierarchy ladder. It'd be near impossible, right? Because it doesn't work like that. It's more like a big spider web of people than it is about a ladder. So it doesn't actually make you feel better. It doesn't make you a better person, does it? When has it ever made you feel better? Like, yes, you might think putting somebody else down makes you feel better, but deep down there's that shitty feeling inside of you that's like, I just said a bad thing about somebody and I don't know why. All right? So it doesn't actually make you a better person by staring into the lives of others with nothing but just a distorted view of theirs and your own reality. You do not know what is going on in that person's life. Today you have an hour snapshot of what I've written for you. You do not have a snapshot of what's happened in my day. I dropped my laptop today and didn't smash my screen accidentally because my dog was causing chaos underneath my feet, and now I have to go and get my laptop repaired tomorrow. And I don't think that happened because I'm unfortunate or unlucky or because, the world wanted me to have a bad day or that I deserved it or that someone else didn't deserve that. I just know it was an accident, and I'm not worse off than anybody and I'm not better off than anybody. I can still afford a laptop. These are just facts about my life, but you don't know any of that unless I tell you. So you have a distorted view of what is happening with somebody else. You are making assumptions from the pieces of information that you have decided to collect instead of thinking about everything involved. And it usually is because you already have a bias. You already have established a bias against yourself or for yourself because of the way that you function and the way that you default to feeling, usually in situations that feels comfortable for you. So it's an irrational behavior, an internal decision that seems to only bring you down or bring you up. So it's one or the other. It's like this, roller coaster, but pays no credit to where you are and doesn't actually allow for a neutral reflection upon your own life and your own choices. It doesn't hold you responsible or accountable for what you have control over, okay? And perhaps for your actions in the past that you may or may not have served you. So you're not doing any of that reflecting. You're not thinking about, oh, this happened and that's right, I went through that thing and I had this surgery and wow, I'm actually doing quite well. Or I made some poor choices last week for myself. Why am I looking at that person's life when I probably haven't been putting the work in towards what I want to achieve for me, and that person has been doing it for them, but I don't need to compare. I just need to look at what I'm doing, right? It's crazy, isn't it? So it deflects the responsibility onto someone else and detracts from your own responsibility for yourself. That's what it does, right? Oh, but she's got a good life, She's privileged. Oh, yeah, but she doesn't have kids, so she wouldn't know what it's like. That type of conversation is only putting you in a position that permits you to stay where you are and justifies where the other person is. But there is no comparison. So she doesn't have children. She probably doesn't understand, but why does that have anything to do with your situation? You have children. It's a different set of circumstances. So, when in reality, neither type of comparison, neither upward or downward, or trying to be like somebody else, are required to help you succeed. Wild, right? That concept of staying in your own lane and having your own goals and things you want to do that are separate to other people's accomplishments, what a relief. You might want to live in a tiny home. You might just go, fuck it, I hate having stuff. I want to move into a tiny home in the middle of nowhere and I want to be in peace. If that's what you actually want and it's not what somebody else has and then you want it because someone else has it. If it's just what you want for your life, then do it, you know? And don't do it from a place or a position of, I want to do that because it looks good. I want to do that because it looks cool. Do it because you know you're going to enjoy it. There is such a thing. There's no such thing as completely healthy competition, I think, but there is such a thing as some healthy competition. You're probably thinking in this vlog, well, hold on, Mariah. I am competitive, but I think there's nothing wrong with that. It's helped me achieve great things in my life before, being competitive with other people. Healthy competition for sure, but healthy competition looks like competing with somebody and then hugging them afterwards and genuinely being happy for their success. Or if you win, they're genuinely happy for yours and you're not rubbing it in their faces, you know. Healthy competition looks like standing backstage with, like for myself, with bodybuilding competitors and shaking the hands of the people around you and going, well done. Okay, I admit I have been a sore loser sometimes. I've lost and I've been disappointed and I've been in a position where I've just wanted to scream. But then I realized I didn't actually lose. I did quite well. I went through a whole prep. You know, I got some second places, whatever it looked like at the time. Often when you're in that moment, healthy competition can be unhealthy as soon as we get to a position where our entire self-esteem relies on whether we win or not. Yeah, that's it, right? That's where it becomes unhealthy. When you become obsessed with constant comparison or even disheartened when you don't win or you're not elite. Not yet, right? So it's weird because some people assume they are elite and if they're not elite, they're nothing. Or you start to pick yourself apart in comparison against a person. Oh, that's a tough one, right? You are purposefully torturing yourself. That's what you're doing. You are torturing yourself. Whether you like to think it or not, when you compare yourself to somebody else, whether it's some factors or all factors, you are choosing to torture yourself. It is a form of self-sabotage, not a tool for motivation. It isn't. You compare without rationalizing or considering any other factors other than your own personal bias, as I mentioned previously. It is your bias that is deciding that you need to be doing this. And this begins the spiral of, I'm not good enough, I never will be, or I won't bother, or I need to flog myself silly to get to where that person is. You know, that person made $1 million in a year. I've got to be like that person. How'd they do it? I want to know how to do it. Hold on. Why do you want to make $1 million in a year? Just because that person did it? And also, why do you need to make $1 million in a year? And also, did anyone tell you that you needed to do that in that amount of time? Is it possible to do it for you and your set of circumstances in that time? And is it actually necessary? That's the most important thing. Is it necessary to do it on the same timeline as someone else? No. And obviously it promotes an unhealthy pursuit of a goal which can consume you and erode your mental health. It encourages working in extreme black and white ways of thinking, right? I am not this and therefore I am not that, you know? I'm not this yet, so therefore I am not this. It's almost like, and I described this to somebody today, I was actually talking about running a marathon, right? And so people can run a marathon and they can go, I just want to get ahead of the crowd. I just want to be winning. I'm behind, you know, I'm 10 places behind. I need to be in front. I need to be in front. I need to be in front. And unfortunately, marathons don't work that way. If you're running a marathon, you have to pace yourself. And so, yes, you're running against other people, but if you don't think about yourself, your own fatigue levels, you know, pacing yourself and making sure that you don't run out of gas by the end of the marathon, you can easily self-sabotage yourself, right? So you go too hard, too quickly, and all of a sudden that last mile basically totals you. And you've seen it with marathon runners before, where they basically fall over. You know, they're just giving up in that last mile, that last kilometer. There are marathons that have been won in the last 50 meters because somebody was okay with being second or third for the majority of the race. Because they weren't worried about being in front, because all they were worried about was here, right? And here. They were worried about their head and their heart, why they were doing it, and their head. They were thinking really logically about, hold on, if I pace myself, I've got a really good chance at saving some energy for the final leg, right? So it promotes an unhealthy pursuit. It really does. It becomes almost like a vicious effort to destroy yourself in the pursuit of trying to be like someone else or something else or be something that you think you need to be. Your journey, accomplishments, life choices, environment, upbringing, and genetics, and the list goes on, are individual to you and your path, right? So what you're doing, the actual actions that you are taking towards what you're trying to achieve, is completely separate to the person next to you. To you and you alone. As are the same factors for others. Okay? You don't have the whole picture. You don't have all the puzzle pieces. You haven't even had a conversation with that person, I can guarantee it. So why are you deciding that you know everything about them, or what they're doing, or whether it's better or worse? No matter which way you look at it, you never know someone's full story. And even when you do know the half of it, or even the smidgen, the tiniest little smidgy 2.5% of it, I don't know, what's the smallest percentage? 1%? 0.001%. No, but even if you've got a fraction of their story, there is no actual benefit to comparing your story to theirs or vice versa. Because even with that fraction, that's literally like picking up a leaf off a tree and going, yes, this looks like a very interesting leaf. I'm going to compare it to a leaf on a tree hundreds of thousands of miles away, and why aren't they the same? It's like, you don't have the whole tree with you, you know? It's a really illogical thing to do when you really think about it. There is literally no benefit or gain to lifting someone onto a pedestal above you or standing over them, okay? No benefit or gain to you put someone up here, what does that do for you? I feel shit. My life sucks. This person has everything. You know, you end up sinking into your like hole of sadness and, you know, woe is me. And my life is really hard, you know, I want that, I want it, why don't I have it? It's just constant sadness. And then even if you put yourself above somebody and you're looking down on them, you're a shit person, like you are. I'm sorry, but if you look down on people, yuck, I wouldn't wear those shoes. I think either way of comparison is fairly ugly internally, very ugly for us. It's a very, you know, we did it as kids and we should have grown out of it as adults, but unfortunately it happens everywhere now because it's just so, it's almost like normalized to compare yourself to other people, because you see it with magazines, you see it with celebrities, you see it with now social media. Now more than ever, it's this constant like, I want to do what so-and-so is doing so I can be cool, or I can, you know, come across as somebody who's influential. When in actual fact, your motivators for doing something or pursuing something should come from within, always. So it takes away from your own achievements. When you are so focused on other people, you literally forget about yourself and whatever you've done. You become so focused on others that that's in the forefront of your mind, and what you've achieved is kind of like in the background, right? So you forget about you. You forget about staying in your own lane and focusing on you, but that's actually how you accomplish your own version of success. Hear that? That phrase, your own version of success, is how you succeed, because your life, just being alive, I know it sounds really cliche, but just being alive is a chance that most of us don't even realize how rare it is that we are alive, you know? It's like I don't know what it is, 1 in a billion, but the chance of you actually being conceived is crazy, that you actually made it to this earth, right? So that alone tells us that each individual person has their own individual, completely complex and intricate journey that can branch off and change. And yes, some people have really unfortunate lives where shit just keeps hammering them. Some of the most successful people, and one of the most incredible things is watching people become resilient from those moments. That you can see people come out of huge challenges and just keep fighting. So, not staring into your neighbour's yard for what they have, you know, that type of behaviour it really is just an empty hole of no satisfaction. You will get zero satisfaction from doing that. You lose sight of what truly makes you happy, okay? What you actually want in life. Your desires become driven by becoming superior to others, or even using certain accomplishments as a way to prop yourself up, and this becomes the basis of a very fragile sense of self, okay? It is. Whether you base your sense of self on what you accomplish versus other people is a fragile sense of self, because you're removing anything within your own direct control, and you're actually saying it's not in your control, and that where others are and where you're placing them is, you know, it's like the only thing that really gauges your success. It breeds sadness, anger, pain. These are all emotions that are very strongly revolved around comparison. Sadness, anger, pain, frustration, angst, right? You get anxious. Bitterness, nastiness, envy, jealousy, right? Concern, worry, the list goes on. All incredibly difficult and consuming emotions which compile over time and actually eat away at our self-worth. Subconsciously we do it. Never assume anything. Assumption can rob us of the truth, and it will. That's the whole idea of assumption. It robs you of the actual truth. And weirdly enough, the truth even can be skewed from different people's perspectives. So what we think is the truth and what we assume to be the truth and what's actually the truth actually differs, because have you heard that saying that it's like, there's always three sides to the story? It's what we assume to be true may not be true from that person's perspective that we're comparing ourselves to, and vice versa, maybe of their family's perspective or maybe of their partner's perspective. We actually don't ever have all of the truth, and so therefore the assumptions we make are basically fiction. We're basing our own ideas and concepts of their life as the foundations of a story that they haven't even given us a chance to listen to. Assuming something about someone's life that you do not in fact walk in the shoes of is as logical as guessing the answers to an exam you haven't studied for, or believing that you can read minds. It is. It's that logical. You will most likely have an incredibly different experience of your life if you remove the toxic nature of comparison, because it is toxic. No matter how you do it, it's toxic. No matter how you compare yourself to others, it's toxic. It doesn't matter whether you're comparing yourself to, if you're a tennis player and you go, I want to be like Serena Williams. You can't be like Serena Williams, because Serena Williams is Serena Williams. You can be like you, and let's say that you might go on to, win more titles than she's ever won. But why is it a comparison to Serena Williams and not to what you achieved in your life? So the comparison should never be made. If you currently have someone else as your background picture because you aspire to look like them, take it off. It's a strange thing, isn't it? Oh, but she inspires me. No, that's fine. But don't ever aspire to be like anyone except for yourself. And as soon as you switch that around, you actually stop comparing, you stop worrying, you stop giving a shit about what so-and-so is doing or how so-and-so looks, because you're so focused on your own lane and so focused on bettering yourself against yourself, for yourself, depending on your circumstances, taking everything into account, that everything else around you no longer becomes anything that drives you as a motivator, all the extrinsic motivators, and it all becomes this very strong, deep internal journey. In fact, you're far more likely to enjoy and learn from your own experiences if you simply focus on what you can do in your own life and far less on the lives of others. Don't look at my life. Please don't look at my life. Look at my life and go, fuck yeah, awesome, yay for her. But don't look at my life and go, I want what she has, why don't I have it? Because I tell you what, can't stand it. And I actually don't do it. I honestly stopped doing it a long time ago, looking through the windows of other people's lives and going, I want what she has and she's just this and she's just that, because I don't know anything about them. How to stop comparing yourselves to others. Yay, the best part of the vlog and the last part. I'm going to go hard and fast. A humble and happy human being is never seen comparing. We stay in our own lane. And if we do see someone doing better than us in a certain facet, we practice being genuinely happy or proud of them and their accomplishments. There's actually a real term for this, being happy for somebody else's happiness that doesn't involve you. This quite literally feels peaceful to put out into the world. Oh my God, as soon as you start doing this, not just, oh yeah, I'm happy for her. No, like it's really inspirational. On the inside, it's just killing you, right? I mean, genuinely start going, oh my God, how good would that feel? That's such a nice feeling. I'm actually genuinely happy for that person. I now look at people getting gifts in front of me and I actually get more excited than they do, because I'm like, oh, they must be so happy. Oh, I love it. Like, seeing other people happy makes me happy, not because I gave them the happiness, because I actually like seeing other people happy and successful and doing well. And that doesn't come from a position of I want what they've got. You've got to change that around. You've got to spin it around, because trust me, it feels so peaceful. If you see someone struggling, or perhaps who may not be achieving what you are in life, right? Give them a hand up if they ask for it. But it remains none of your business until the person asks for your help, guidance, or even advice. Okay, it's really hard to let this go, but don't demean other people in a way which would mean that you're shoving your advice onto them, etc., and putting them down, maybe publicly in front of other people. If they didn't ask for it and they want to go on their own path, that's actually up to them. It's none of your business. Next time you find yourself comparing to someone else's social media posts, stories, or highlight reels, think of the last time you felt crippling sadness, frustration, or even grief. Take yourself right back there. It is guaranteed that every living human being has felt negative or difficult emotions at some stage in their life, right? And despite how wonderful everything may appear from the outside, even the most successful and the happiest of us struggle, suffer, and hurt. Nobody is exempt from pain. That is the most human feeling, emotion, physical and mental, that any one of us can ever feel. And no matter how wonderful and dandy somebody's life looks, everybody experiences pain. So stop assuming about anyone's life that everything is just perfect, and that you're the only person who's struggling, or that, they don't go through their own struggles as well. People don't have to, this is so important, people don't have to post or show their struggles. I hear this all the time. Social media is a highlight reel. Why isn't everybody real and transparent on social media? Newsflash, if I was real and transparent, you guys would think I'm a negative Nancy. You'd hate me. You wouldn't want to follow my shit because I'd be swearing every 5 seconds going, fuck, drop that again, fuck, I forgot lunch, fuck, itchy. Like you would literally, or it'd be like, fuck, I'm going through some family struggles at the moment and someone who's really dear to me is really sick. No, you don't want to hear that. It's interesting. People get really cranky about not seeing reality on social media, but then when it is on social media, you don't know what to do with it. It's like, ooh, that's uncomfortable. No thanks. The interesting thing is, social media is not designed for people to air their dirty laundry or to vent. If they want to, they can. That's their platform. But if somebody does not want to show the whole world their struggles, or everyone that follows them what they're going through, that is their business. You are not entitled to hear about all the bad shit that happens in their life. They're not keeping it from you because they're trying to paint their life to be awesome. They're keeping it from you because they don't want to talk about it, most likely. And that's okay. They don't have to tell everybody what's going on for them. Some people are not comfortable doing it. Some people may be self-conscious. That's fine. Or simply like to deal with their troubles alone. Some people, myself, I love just dealing with some heavy shit by myself, or with some very close and dear friends. I do not need the whole world to save me, and I don't want it either. People not posting their struggles doesn't mean they don't struggle, or that they don't have challenges. People not posting shit that happens in their day that's bad doesn't mean bad shit didn't happen, and you don't get to say, oh, but why don't you post it? Because that's their choice. They get to choose what they put out there, because sometimes they don't want to go on about it either. Sometimes they just want to move forward from it and not think about it. Social media shows you 5% of someone's life, and if you're lucky. It's not a platform where everyone is entirely open, and that's fine. Don't expect them to be, and don't think it's going to change anytime soon. And so obviously go into social media with that pretense that yes, some things are going to look sunshine and rainbows and some things aren't. And it's not going to be the full picture, because it never is the full picture. It's not possible unless you're following them around with a GoPro. They do not need to just make you feel more secure or human by posting the shit that goes on that's hard for them so that you feel better about yourself either. Okay, so comparing yourself to other people and making sure that they're having a shit time too is also really unhealthy, because in reality, we've all had a shit time at some point in our lives. We're not silly. People do struggle. It's just that some people don't want to talk about it as much as others. Practice speaking less about other people's lives or actions, unless it's in a positive light, true admiration, or a light that includes actively helping them or concern and love for them, okay? So try and hold back from speaking about other people that comes from a pretty judgy perspective, and catch yourself doing it, because trust me, we've all done it and we all do it to some aspect. Perhaps the accomplishments you see are simply that, something the person has worked for. Yes, I know, right? Or even so maybe they have been given it to them, right? So someone has gone, hey, have this Ferrari. And it's like, cool. You don't get to be bitter and shitty about someone getting a Ferrari from someone else. That's out of your control. That's not the person's fault. They got gifted a Ferrari, you know? This does not make them undeserving, ever. And it does not make you undeserving of your own accomplishments. Practice true and genuine happiness for someone when you can see them succeeding. Stamp the jealousy monster out, like for good. If you find it creeping up on you, imagine yourself in that person's shoes, feeling the joy, the euphoria that they are feeling. Feel it with them, yeah? Practice feeling the joy with others instead of taking it away from them. Instead of taking away their joy with your selfish envy, it actually feels incredible. When you reach a point where you can watch somebody laugh or smile and enjoy a moment that you don't have, that they have separate to you, and it has nothing to do with you, and you genuinely feel warmth and love and this like, I don't know, the warm and fuzzy feeling inside of you, and you get that every single time you see someone succeed and kill it, and the girls on the social media and they're killing the game, right? Yes, cheer, because there's no feeling like it. It almost feels better than your own success sometimes, because it's not interrupted by everything, you know, in life. It's literally just being able to be on that person's side instead of being against them. Jealousy and envy is insecurity amplified. That's a fact. Practice writing down things or speaking about things openly that you are grateful for in your life every day. Okay? Do it today. Or be proud of yourself for achieving something overtly. So be proud. Instead of constantly wishing and wanting for more, be proud of what you've got and what you have been doing. It's okay to want more for yourself, but approach this from a space of self-encouragement instead of self-criticism or comparison. So know where the position comes from. Do you want more for yourself because somebody else has it? Or you feel bad about yourself, or you're comparing yourself? Or is it because you are excited and you want to encourage yourself to achieve it? Surround yourself with others who support what you want for yourself. Ensure that you have a support network that does exactly that, support. Okay? If you find people in your circle are comparing you to others or dragging you down further, it's time to get a new circle. Oh, that sounds brutal. Billions of people on this earth, dude. Billions. And you're worried about this many. That you, oh no, I can't cut them out. They mean a lot to me. They mustn't mean very much to you if they're assholes. Be more vicious in that pursuit of having the circle that supports you, because most of the time the people who don't support you don't feel very good about themselves, and they are literally taking you with them. You cannot change others, but you can change the position and the role they assume in your life and the influence they have. Ensure and reflect upon whether the energy that you are using to accomplish something comes from a pure and authentic place deep inside of you instead of a place of envy and jealousy. Audit that as much as you need to, right? Just like I did the last couple of weeks. Why did I want that house? It's because so-and-so has that house and I think that house looks nice and, you know, they're really successful. No, I don't want that house. No, I'm getting tied up. It's okay. It's okay to spot yourself when you're doing this. No, it doesn't make you a bad person. In that moment, you might be a shitty person if you're putting people, down and beneath you, but you can amend that. You can change that. You can reflect upon it. You are not stuck the way that you are, and that does not make you as a whole a shitty person. It just was a shitty person moment. So when someone celebrates their success, okay, celebrate it with them instead of trying to one-up them. So just let them enjoy the moment. Don't try and trump their achievement, okay? Oh, I did better than that. Or take away from their accomplishment with a dismissive statement against yourself or against them. I don't give a shit what we're celebrating, whether it's somebody winning a, second place medal in a swimming carnival. It's like, oh, I got first. When I was your age, I got a first. Why is that necessary? Why do you need to take away from other people's happiness? You don't, to make yourself feel better. Practice cheering for other people, as I mentioned. Practice transparently admiring others and even looking up to them in a way that doesn't mean that you need to be anything like them. You can literally admire people and not have to be like them. Perhaps you might be able to take a leaf out of their book, maybe. Perhaps their mentality in life may be a skill that you can learn from. How do they think? How do they tick? Have a conversation with them. Read some of the stuff they've written. If there's books, if they've written books, if they're producing podcasts like I'm producing. that's cool. I like the way she thinks, right? Not from a position of wanting everything that person has and then letting that consume you. So, send them a message, write them a comment, or even share their success with others, which comes from a genuine place of pride for them. One of the best things about coaching is that it allows me to sit in a position of celebrating other people's wins literally all the time. And I would absolutely gladly do that without putting my name on it, because I actually genuinely come from a position of giving a shit about these people. Yeah? And so I think that when you learn that you don't have to be in the spotlight all the time and that other people can be successful and can do really well and you can be happy for them, it takes away all that anxiety and that worry, because that comparison game no longer consumes you at all. It's not even a thing in your mind. It's just, hell yeah, look at that girl go. Like, I love that. Like, how exciting is that? I've seen some clients surpass what I've achieved in life, right, with some things. And I actually love this, because that means that I've done my job, number one, but number two, that means that person's happy. Like, it means that person is happy and successful, and that is a great thing. I do not need to compare myself as their mentor to them. So, know your purpose and your own story, your own set of circumstances to reflect on, and know that each day, week, month, and year in your life will be different to the next, and vastly different and unique to anyone else's for that matter, and that is a wonderful thing. It is an absolute gift to have your own story. It is an absolute gift to have your own journey. It is. You are literally the author of your life. And yes, there are going to be things that come along that are out of your control, but when you really focus on what's in your control and you focus on your lane and what you've done and what you haven't done, and you can reflect and you can learn and you can grow from that, you can become unstoppable, because you're building on your own. This is your own little garden. Nobody else is coming into it, because this is yours, right? Focus on your energy on you. The more time you waste comparing yourself to others, the less time you spend on actually investing the time and energy into what you want. It makes sense, right? Scrolling on social media, comparing people and talking about other people. Oh my God, you've just lost an hour to comparison. And if you're doing that every day, you're literally losing days and days and days to a process that does nothing but drag you further down into your demise. They likely did not achieve great things for themselves by spending hours scrolling on social media or obsessing about someone else. Okay? I don't do it. I don't. I'm not a scroller. I'm not a look up so-and-so and, oh, who's she? And, oh, why does she have a better life than me? I don't do that. I honestly couldn't give a fuck. Like, I genuinely there's no fucks to give inside of me. I'm happy for those people. In fact, when people go, do you see so-and-so? She's amazing. I'm like, oh, wow, like, that's really cool. That's actually impressive. But I don't do it out of a position to try and win or be better than them, or, like this weird sense of, I'm not good enough type of situation, or why am I not like her? Or, she's got a better set of circumstances and, she's just lucky. Yuck. They had tunnel vision for themselves, and so should you, okay? If there's any sort of indication of their success, they just wanted to do well, and so should you for you. Recognize your own strengths, your own wins, okay? Your individualism, your own successes. Only measure from where you last fell down or struggled, okay? Because some people can be like, oh, but I was, I could run 100 meters in 15 seconds when I was 15. It's like, yeah, you're not 15 anymore, and, you've had 3 kids and life's changed, and if you go back to sprinting, you don't have to do the same thing again. It would be awesome if you could. But again, you have to think about where life changed, what's different now, and if you compare yourself to who you used to be, that can be helpful to bring you forward sometimes too, but remember that it can't always be that way. Who you are now is a completely different version of you. And obviously that version of you no longer exists, as much as it has changed since. Who we were 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 6 months ago no longer exists. It is always good to have aspirations to be better, a better version of yourself, sure, but maybe it's just different. Maybe better is different. Maybe it's not where you were before, but there may be other factors in your life. Or you may have really struggled and gone through a significant change in your life that meant that you weren't in a position to be able to do that. So comparison, to finish up, comparison is the thief of joy. That saying. If you witness genuinely happy and content human beings around you, if you can see them and you think, wow, why are they so happy? It almost grinds your gears, doesn't it? If you're a comparison player, if you play that game, it may in fact not be their life or luck that decides their happiness, but the daily decision to choose to stay in their own lane and focus on their own journey. That is happiness. Do not let comparison steal your joy. All right, that's it from me. Looking forward to doing another vlog for you soon. Thanks a lot. Make sure you like, subscribe, and share our podcast and our vlogs because it helps us get the word out there to everybody. Thanks.